My name is Josh Benoit, marketing for EPLAN USA. This is our webcast about what's new in Harness 2023. We had our rollout of Platform 2023 a few months ago, and there have been so many great things about Platform 2023 that we've had to get to them in chunks, basically. So this is one that Christopher had a lot of experience with, and we thought would be a great webcast. You can ask questions throughout the webcast by either raising your hand, or you can put them in the chat. We're going to take all of them at the conclusion of the webcast. Thanks for joining us today, and I want to introduce our engineer that's in charge of Harness 2023 and showing us everything about it. That would be Christopher Alldritt. So Christopher, tell us just a little bit about your background before you launch into things.
My name is Christopher Alldritt. I am an application engineer with EPLAN USA. Prior to my life with EPLAN, I was a designer for a machine tool manufacturer and factory automation solutions provider. So I did nothing but electrical design for robots and machine tools and all the peripherals that go in between for 10 years. And prior to that, I was in an academic life studying control and control theory. So lots of math until my eyes bled out. Now I am going to show you Harness 2023. That was a great segue. Good job. Okay, so before I talk about Harness, what's new with Harness, I'd like to just give a brief primer on what Harness is. Hopefully my screen is being shown. It says it is. Great. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, it's now story time. We'll talk about what Harness is. Harness is a tool that is used to develop your designs in a 3D space. It allows you to realize any designs that you've designed on a schematic and generate them in a 3D virtual twin. Started out as a simple 2D wire harness and nail boarding design tool and has grown up significantly to be a full application with 3D capabilities that allow you to import designs from, let me move this out of the way, import designs from a schematic and place them on a virtual model of a machine tool. In this case, we have a Perforex machine, which is used to modify panels designed by our sister company, Rittal Automation Solutions, working with some Rittal parts. And what we've done is import a schematic that you see on the right, the EPLAN import side, and we're going to bring in individual parts. And the new features of the Harness 2022 and 23 platform allow us to pull in an entire wire harness with a few clicks. So now we're selecting a connector and we're placing it on a connector that's already existed on this light curtain, and we're going to click, and then all of a sudden our harness is completely generated. So we now have a complete connection from that light curtain all the way over to the control panel. So now that we've dived deep, let's pull back a little bit and look at some of the other guts. So what we were doing while we were placing all that stuff is creating a virtual twin of a design. And we're augmenting that design by placing a few connectors and ultimately diving into the guts of the control panel itself. What this allows us to do is maintain synchronicity between what you're actually going to see in the real world and what was designed on 2D a few design steps ago. And that is, in essence, what Harness is. It is the ability to take what was designed on 2D and then place it in 3D. There is bidirectional support available with the Harness tool. So if you wanted to design a complete electrical cabinet and machine completely in the 3D space and then export that information back to the 2D space, you can do that through the use of an export back to EPLAN P8 in this case, or ProPanel, or Fluid, or whatever design tool you have, as long as it's with the EPLAN platform. Why would you use anything else? And so in this case, we're going to route a cable harness through a control panel with just a few clicks. And so I'm going to select the cable harness and route it through these grommets on the bottom side of the control panel. Select the part, select our select our duct, and then drag our individual points away, and so we can see all the individual wires from that sensor, the brown, the white, and the black. It's now routed through the panel, through the grommets, through the shield clamps, and back to our light curtain. And so some other things about harness that are useful is the way to take that information and send it back to a 2D drawing that will be useful for people constructing devices in the field. So what we're going to do now is automatically create some cable units from our work. Done. We skipped ahead a few steps. Go to our workspace and then generate some cable drawings. So now we're going to generate 10 cable units from those placed cables with all the connectors and everything included. Pick a template that we've used on previous projects. That way we don't have to do extra work. And finally, create a set of cable drawings. You can select one or more cable drawings and use the previously mentioned template to format the cable drawings exactly the way you wanted one time, and that way you don't have to do extra work. Skip ahead a few steps and then look at the cable drawing. So now all the cable drawings are positioned, all the components that are involved are displayed, and that's the effect of harness. That's what you can do with harness. You bring data in from a 2D space, route it in a 3D space, and then finally get a production document that somebody can use on the shop floor. All right, so that was harness. That was the 2022 version of harness. And now we'll talk about some of the stuff that harness has brought to bear in 2023. So as of just today, Harness 2023 Update 3 was released. In 2022, we had a dark mode, backstage, ribbon, and file system icons, all designed to bring us into synchronicity with our platform. So EPLAN platform, as you may have noticed, has changed the overall look. So we now have a sleeker, more modern look. Every menu command is grouped into command groups. It's a lot easier to find. Dark mode is a lot easier on the eyes. And we have the ability to manage projects a little bit easier on what's called the EPLAN backstage, and group our commands without having 1,000 individual command buttons to deal with. However, you still can customize the command groups however you want. Icons are available to show every single type of file available, so you're not going to end up losing any files when you're going through File Explorer. Every file is indicated and pairs with a unique function inside of Harness. In addition to that, there is both a landing page and new applications, new power read throughout the harness that brings us up to date with the look of the 2023 platform. Light mode, dark mode have been included. There's a recent projects application allows you to sort through older projects a lot easier, but more importantly, we've added a lot more function definitions to newly supported parts, which means that the bulk of the parts in the P8 parts library are now available for use inside of Harness. Before, the two products were, I wouldn't say separated, but definitely unique in their part descriptions. 2023 brings product groupings from from harness, more in line with the look and feel of the projects parts from the P8 platform. So we've got some recategorization and mapping of parts. Amplifiers and controllers now have a one-to-one relationship as to brakes through motors, product groupings for PLCs, down through voltage transport, voltage sources and generators are now included with P8. I'm sorry, now included with harness to bring everything more in line and provide an overall approach and strategy to the product, as opposed to having harness be what it was previously, which basically the redheaded stepchild of the EPLAN product family. The electrical engineering categories have been rejiggered so that plugs and crimp contacts that were previously not granular are now a little bit easier to find. Connectors and wire terminals are now broken down in male, female inserts. In addition to that, the entire panoply of product groupings on the P8 side are now available, with the exception of the new harness-specific items like cable trays. If you're not digging the ability to make a part from a previous part subtypes have now been expanded to include heaters, valves, and modulators, allowing you a lot more parts in harness that you previously didn't have, and that could be synchronized back with the P8 parts library by way of the SQL server and harness synchronizer product, which is included without a need for an additional license, which is different from the 2.9 in 2022. You no longer need a license to have the synchronizer working. There is an entire part group available for any parts that does not fit in with the aforementioned part groups, which are now completely synchronized by the aforementioned synchronizer. In addition, there are multiple designations and descriptions, much like the P8 categories, that allow for multi-language strings. So what you see on P8 is going to be what you see on harness in the parts library. There are support now for Nailboard cable drawings and reports for products that were not previously included in Nailboard, such as PLC terminals and the like. The import panel function on the P8 side now supports all actions, including manual placing, rapid prototypes, graphical, non-graphical accessories, and automatic placing of pro panel data. So you can bring parts and the related harnesses in from P8 with a click of the button. It's also been enhancement to wire terminals in the EPLAN import panel. It can now be placed graphically as like other connectors, but it also preserves a previous functionality as well. So non-graphical accessory wire terminals on the wires will be maintained. So a graphical wire from the import panel is now represented inside the P8 import panel. Didn't really cough, just forgot what I was going to say next. Right, the functionality of wire terminals, I think, is pretty clear. Import panel said that. Right, new properties. So most new properties will now have multi-language support, so you can save the current language, be multi-line in P8 or on the harness side library. Function text from projects is now available, so it'll be filled out from the schematic project, so we can import function text from the EPLAN P8 project to the harness project. Article data or parts data, same deal. Part description will now be ported directly over to the parts library. As long as a property is populated on one side, it will show up on the other side. Otherwise, it will just be blanked out. Yeah, I don't think covered that. Yep. All right. So new connection properties. So wires and cables previously weren't able to have connection designations. Those are now available. Special components will always showed up as a sphere. Those are now going to have the true geometry. Grouped pins, 3D object windows are now represent an entire pin, always at the origin. They can change color and size. Used for splice tabs, additional graphics, import, try that again in English. Additional graphics can be imported from the local parts management, previously the CPM. And so you'll have a true representation of an accessory and part in 3D. Going back from 3D to 2D, a special derivation is available. So when you derive a 2D symbol, you can use the symbol derivation function and bring an automatic update from a library in Studio. So when you change the symbol in one area, you can immediately see the results in another, in Studio and Harness. There's additional MCAD data exchange enhancements for 2023. Enhancements spelled wrong, sorry for that. We have new 3D formats like CATIA version 5. I believe there's Siemens JT106 and Revit 2022 from Autodesk is all part of the new Service Pack 1. The other previously supported imports and 3D imports will be brought in soon. There's an optional selection of export from reference geometry models. What that means in plain English is that when you're creating subassemblies in Harness, you would frequently reuse those. And when you export that information into a step file, if you used reference geometry, you could create a smaller step file. That, unfortunately, sometimes affects older CAD systems negatively. So now the reference model geometry is an option. In addition to that, there's import of new auxiliary objects from MCAD systems like coordinate system and planes. In addition to that, Harness will support that additional objects and planes from PTC, Creo, and SolidWorks, and in the very near future will support Autodesk Inventor and Solid Edge. Import coordinate systems and planes play a major factor in when you're importing 3D macros in from LPM. They allow you to immediately place parts on points, control points. And in addition to that, one of my new favorites is annotation. It allows you to apply annotations directly to Harness objects and show things like height, width, depth requirements, length of additional properties. And like you see there over on the right, there's the annotation in the gray box. Additional auxiliary objects such as coordinate systems, handles, and mounting points allow for easier placement of parts. UDEFs, user-defined properties, can now be listed in the library overview. So if you have any defined properties that don't fit in with what library offers, you can now list those in the library view and sort by them. So if you, in addition to tags, the previous mechanism for doing user-defined sorting, you can bring UDEFs in over from P8 and sort for those properties when you're running a query. The library has been changed so that column selection can now be modified a lot easier. You can now sort through all the new visible properties by changing positions. A lot easier. The full version information of individual parts is now displayed in the whole software in a major, minor revision format. So you can show the individual revisions and versions of individual parts on both the library side and in derived documents such as nailboards and cable drawings. Yeah, that was it on that. Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say about that. Nope, nothing comes up. Connection designations for wires are available now in reports, and connectable objects, special components are also available in the form of a more object-oriented type format. So you have the object prefix, a delimiter, or period, and then finally the property name. You can introduce those into your reports as well. along with the previously available quantity and length in the BOM. So lots of new properties are available to export to a bill of materials and then eventually onto an ERP system or just your own local spreadsheets. Function text property can also be added to the wire, cable, report, connectable object report, as I mentioned previously. So some quick fixes. So we've redesigned the behavior for user-defined properties after replace. Previously, there was some errors whenever you would select user UDEFs for a part replacement. Those have been corrected. Pinning instructions have now been corrected. Used UDEF properties as new properties in Studio will be preserved. UDEF properties not modified with a user will just not be shown. Merge command or merge group command in the 2D library. When you're creating symbols in the 2D library, as those symbols get more and more complex, you're going to have a lot more graphical elements to deal with, lots of lines to delete. And the merge command will now allow you to group certain elements together after you do an initial explode and then maneuver those parts around the rest of the 2D window. And it's paired with the explode symbol. So as soon as you have finished with your merge, you can then explode those elements again. In other words, 2D symbols creating a lot faster out of really complicated geometry, like not just terminations, but PLC subcomponents such as terminal blocks. All right, so enough of that. I got a brief video that I created for a manufacturing cell, and I wanted to show off one of my new favorites, the cable tray tool. The cable tray is basically a bundle. It is a rectilinear bundle that allows you to create a virtual path for cable trays, not just in manufacturing cell applications, but any 3D environment that would involve a cable tray. So it's not an actual mechanical part that you're placing. You're placing a virtual path just like you would the old bundle, but it allows you to switch between the horizontal and vertical and run cable tray throughout a project and then eventually route cables through it. So you no longer have to rely on just a circular or spherical bundle to represent cable trays in your virtual twin. So it's one more step closer to a complete virtual experience. And that was it. Sorry for the whirlwind, but that's what I got. That's what's new for 2023.
I kind of like the whirlwind. It was good. One of my favorite parts is whenever you coughed and said that wasn't because I had to cough. It was because I forgot what I had to say. So
it's true.
I'm gonna be using that on LinkedIn for you. Hey, Chris, we do have a question. What is the integration? And you talked about Creo briefly, but what is the integration with Creo version 8? Any limitation?
Creo version 8? In what particular context in Creo version 8? There's a Creo version 8 special add-in for Creo that allows you to export cables or 3D geometry directly to Harness. That's been maintained. But if you wanted to get more details on it, we could set up an appointment later between us. So send an email to me and I will answer that question, I think, more directly, but I would need more information than I think we have capacity for right now.
Do you want to go ahead and put your email address in the chat? And also, if you have a question, if anyone has a question, please leave it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we'll get you on here to ask your question about Harness 2023 and the updates. So yeah, thanks. Christopher's email is in the chat now. So if you want to reach out to him on that question to get more in depth, then that's the place to do so.
Yep.
Waiting to see if we have any other questions before we say. But did you know that this is our last webcast of 2020?
I heard.
Or 2022, rather.
Forever, or for just the.
I hope not forever, because I have a lot planned for 2023.
Okay. All
uh,
right.
our
I had
next
questions
one,
about that. This is the I figured this was the last one of the year.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on how they went so far? How do you feel about
I feel like that we've had a lot of progress, and with the Open Line Friday and the webcasts we've been doing, which we're going to combine in 2023. We've had a lot of success. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. We've had a lot of attention from our YouTube channel. So if you have any topics that you want us to cover, please let us know, because that's important to us. We want to make sure that we're hitting the mark on these. And I know that in January, we have smart wiring and smart mounting that Tobias Kratz is going to help us with, that he's over in Germany, and he's going to be joining us for a webcast next year. That'll be our first one of the year, and we have a few more planned out. So we're really excited about what's to come in 2023. And I think it's going to be more streamlined than it was in 2022. We really just went out there to attack everything that we could, and we covered a lot. So we're going to streamline it a bit more for next year. But yeah, we're excited about what's to come. Another question in the chat: I have EPLAN Harness proD extension in EPLAN P8 Select. How can I run that extension? I probably didn't read that correctly, but you can check out that question, Christopher.
Yeah, let's check that out. I don't have access to it. I just see why don't you read it again, and I'll get it this time, I promise.
Okay, I see. It's just to me. I have EPLAN Harness proD extension in EPLAN P8 Select. How can I run that extension? And do I need a separate software?
So you do have Harness proD? I guess
Yes.
is a question of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you again, that'd be something we could take up on online. As long as you have Harness proD and you have the appropriate license on the P8 side, you can do basically what we were just doing. I mean, obviously, if you don't have a Pro panel, you'll miss out on some of the 3D aspects of designing a macro on the Pro panel side and then importing it directly. But that's not the end of the world. You can create all the parts that you need as a one-off in the library, and then save that for later when you do get. I'm using EPLAN P8 Select as the response. So, okay, so if you harness is a separate tool, so you will need a Harness proD license. I guess is the best response.
Yeah. Again, Christopher's email is in the chat, so you can reach out and ask him more questions and get more deep into it, because Chris talks a long time. So it could be a 2-hour conversation you're having about one thing.
I go on and on.
Any other questions? I don't see any right now, so I guess we'll go ahead and end. Thanks, Christopher, for doing this. You did a fantastic job. It's your first time being on a webcast with me, and you did really great.
First time in front of the camera. Camera seems okay, so.
Well, I look forward to doing more in 2023 with you. Everybody that has attended these, thanks so much for joining us. We've had a great time, and happy New Year, happy holidays. Enjoy, and we'll see you back here next year.
Yep.